I don't know if you remember Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister, but that's the title of this book, which we're going to talk about tonight. We'll let you see the cover, and then you'll see very quickly who my guest is. It's not Scarlett's younger sister, but Evelyn Keyes, who had that, what really was a minor role in a great movie, but has followed you to the title of your latest book.
Yes, it wasn't my choice, but...
You didn't want to call the book that?
I wanted to call it A Good Man is Hard to Find.
Yeah.
But my publisher said that sounded like Mae West. They might confuse.
Well, now let me tell the audience about the book. It's a recounting of her life in Hollywood and about her marriages to, the first gentleman's name was?
Barton Bainbridge.
Which they wouldn't know, but they perhaps would know Charles Vidor, a famous director, John Huston, a famous director, a love affair with Mike Todd, and finally a marriage to Artie Shaw, jazz musician of the 40s. And how did you happen to be connected with so many famous guys? It's kind of unusual, I would say, even in Hollywood.
Well, I was in Hollywood, where everybody's famous, and that's who you work with, isn't it? And that's who you run into at pictures and at parties, and that's who you know. But on top of that, I picked particularly strong ones, or they were all directors. And finally, I'm afraid my joke is now I finally get to the leader of the band. You know, I hoped that they would give me direction. A terrible mistake, by the way, when it's marriage that you're after. I mean, there should be some kind of equal partnership. I know for a fact now. And I really wasn't looking for that. I was looking for guidance. Well, what else does a director do? He guides you, doesn't he? He directs you. The leader of the band is up there telling the other musicians what to do. So that's what I was looking for.
Well, now you had left home in Atlanta when you were a teenager. Was you to take a bus to Hollywood?
Practically.
Literally went by yourself?
Yes, I had a sister out there.
Yeah.
That's why my mother would, let me out of Atlanta then.
Yeah.
So I was going to someone, but I went out by myself on a train.
Yeah.
It's very slow.
What year was that now you went out there?
1937.
Now, as you were recounting the book, you were there just a day or so, went to a studio, and a guy, and just within days, you were in Cecil B. DeMille's entourage or office, and you had a contract.
Well, yes. I think I was having dinner with my sister, and some man came over and said...
You ought to be in pictures?
Yes.
Really? Truly happened?
Truly, it's embarrassing. So, yes, and he was an agent, and I said, what's that? I didn't know what an agent was. And he explained. And he knew a woman, a writer, who worked with Cecil B. DeMille. So he took me to see her, Gina McPherson, her name was, who then took me into DeMille. And that was it.
And he liked something about your looks or something?
We had some pictures made. The agent told me to do that. Some still photographs. Five photographs, and we took those along dutifully, and DeMille laid them out on his desk. Said, a lot. Said, I think she'll do, something like that. It was a funny, you think Hollywood was a scandalous place. This Miss McPherson said, show him your legs, dear. And I was so embarrassed. I was standing there.
How old were you then?
I was 17.
Okay.
And I just arrived. And I didn't know how. I didn't know whether you did or not. I sort of started with the dress and didn't know. I said, oh, please.
Oh.
He was embarrassed. He didn't want
I see. He wanted
like
she wanted it for him, but he didn't.
Oh, he didn't want that at all. He was oh my God, that was not Daddy, that was grandfather.
Yeah. And then you had an extraordinary relationship, not sexual, with Harry Cohn, who ran Columbia Pictures, who, I gather that he was jealous of you and wanted to have a relationship, but he didn't.
Well, I was under contract for many years to Columbia after DeMille, and he was president.
Harry Cohn.
Harry Cohn. And I'm assuming that Harry Cohn wanted to own everybody in the studio. That was the nature of the business then. I mean, the stories about L.B. Mayer at Metro are famous, you know.
Yes.
So that was a possessive arrangement we had. We were under contract and they owned us, you know, and everything we did.
Yeah.
Harry then went a little further. He wanted more. It wasn't just my body. He talked of love. He talked of marriage. although he had a wife. And what I think was that he wanted to make it more than just a quick thing.
Yeah.
He wanted to enhance it and make it a romance. But I wouldn't have any part of it. So instead of saying, gee, thanks, but no thanks, I said, ah, how dare you?
Which obviously offended him.
Well, it would anybody. I mean,
Well,
there are
correct.
ways of saying no, aren't there? But I wasn't up to it.
Now, your first husband, was he in the business?
No,
He had nothing to do with
no,
movie making
no. He was a contractor, I believe.
in California.
It was in California, yes.
And as your book recounts, he committed suicide and left a note saying it was your fault.
Yes.
And now you're how old then when that happened to you?
Oh, that was like the next year,
So
when all
18.
this DeMille thing was going on.
Yeah.
Yes, and I really wasn't, I wasn't up to it, and I believed it to be true. So it influenced my life, as you can imagine, a great deal. And in my selection, you know, because I didn't pay any attention to him. I was really driven. I was really ambitious, and I had blinders on, and I was going to be a star. And he had troubles, didn't he? Obviously.
It seems he did,
Yes,
as
he
the
had.
way you recounted.
Yes. And I didn't realize it. So from then on, I didn't. I picked people I knew who were safe.
It seemed to me, as I remember the early movies that I see on television now of you, that you were the classic sex object in the early years of Hollywood, a young, beautiful girl.
The nice girl too.
Yeah, and nice.
I mean, the one they wound up with,
Yeah.
took home to mother, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Which was
So I get carried away.
right.
Yeah.
Do you see the old movies a lot now, or are you turned off by the whole nostalgia thing of movies?
Yeah, I don't see. They show them too late at night.
Does it bother you when people continually talk to you about those days?
Depends on how they talk about them. You know, if they talk about them with interest or some objective. I like to talk about them objectively,
Right.
not as though I were there, because I'm not there. I'm here
Right,
now.
right.
You know, and then it can be interesting. Or those in relationship to now. That's kind of interesting. But
Well, it's interesting to me about Gone with the Wind. A lot of people said in the title of your book, and yet to you at that time, it was just a momentary thing, a famous movie, yes, but your part was not major, and it was kind of something that came and went, and yet it's been frozen in celluloid now for these 40 almost years, and people still want to talk to you as if it were yesterday. It's anachronistic, really. It has nothing to do with your life today at all. Extraordinary.
no, and of course people expect me to be very connected with it and to have these big memories. And what was Clark Gable like?
Right.
Well, he said hello to me very nicely. I mean, that was, you know.
Yeah.
I knew him later, but I didn't know him much on Gone with the Wind. You know, there's probably still is, I don't know, there's a big pecking order out there. Are there in all businesses? I guess so.
Of course. I think perhaps in Hollywood more so, because I've thought a lot about that. There was enormous money at stake, enormous power, enormous control of the American public's mind and psyche.
Right.
For example, I look back at movies made in the 30s and 40s, and you see cigarettes are a part of every scene.
Every scene.
And now I realize why when I was 16, I had to start smoking.
Right.
I coughed and retched for 2 months to get used to smoking Lucky Strikes, and I smoked them for 10 years, thank heavens I quit. But
Oh, God.
I realize now it was such a part of a kid's psyche, growing up, watching the movies 3 times a week, and everybody's smoking. It was connected with everything.
I learned to smoke so I could be sophisticated in movies.
Right.
Right.
There you go. You still smoke?
Good heavens,
Oh,
no.
okay, good.
Don't you see this halo?
Well, as you can see, we have just scratched the surface of what this book's all about. And if you're tired of books about Hollywood and you don't want to hear about people who used to make movies or make them today, it's still worth reading because of, I really find it a very fundamentally sound observation on women's role in society through the years.
That's really what I was writing.
Yeah, it's there.
I know they don't, my brothers don't want me to say so because they think, but that's really
no.
what it was.
Sure.
And because I was in pictures, it's kind of even blown up, isn't
Right.
it?
That's right. But you did observe some very interesting people, and it's fun to read, but I think after you finish, you'll think about it. Show you the cover again of Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister, even though Evelyn wanted to call it "The Good Man Is Hard to Find." Thanks, Evelyn Keyes, very much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.